independent women, educated women, are among the most dangerous elements of society for a regime such as that which controls Iran at the moment. And so they are extremely worried about the impact. The anniversary of Mahsa Amini's death was in September. And at that point, there had been already a great deal of crackdown on the demonstrations that had taken place over the 9 months previous. And at the point of the anniversary, the government arrested a lot more activists in anticipation of uprisings marking that anniversary. And the result is that there has been an increasing amount of repression in Iran. There have been new laws that have been passed that are increasing the criminalization of appearing in public for women who do not wear the veil. And there are also pressures that are being brought, for example, on businesses and universities to ensure that those who do not wear the veil are denied their benefits, the right to go to university or the right to be served in shops and hospitals, that kind of thing. So it's across the board. There's also a great deal more facial recognition that is taking place in Iran. They've instituted the placement of cameras in a great number of the city streets across the country, especially in Tehran, the capital, with the result that they're not having to face women in the streets in public, but are able to use law enforcement to go to their homes and arrest them, showing evidence of them breaking the rules.
This is of course, these are measures included in the chastity and hijab bill that the Iranian parliament approved in response to the protests after the death of Mahsa Amini. And there's been some classified documents published in an Iranian newspaper that just show how far some of the considerations reached when it came to trying to clamp down on protests, trying to make sure that all women, still wear a headscarf. And I understand, Roxane, that they were looking at setting up mobile courts in public places like shopping malls to punish dress code violations.
Well, there's a broad range of measures that are being taken, and I think it really reflects the fact that independent women, educated women, are among the most dangerous elements of society for a regime such as that which controls Iran at the moment. And so they are extremely worried about the impact. This was the first women-led demonstration in the region, and it caught the imagination not just of women, but of men, and many different generations also signed on to this, as well as different sectors of society. And the reason was because it captured not just the idea of women's rights, but as the Nobel laureate Narges Mohammadi points out, it is really capturing the idea of the society's survival, the moral code, which women very much represent as having rights, but also surviving and representing the right to protection, for example, and their place in society. And it's quite interesting that over the year of protests, where 500 people were killed, it was actually boys and young men who suffered the most. They were the ones that died in greater numbers. And so it really shows that this is a movement that is very unsettling for the government. And that's why they've been rolling out these extraordinary measures.
Are they enough to stop the women of Iran from rising up? Has there been kind of a temporary lull because of the harshness of these measures? Where do you predict that this goes from here? I'm sure the appetite is still there. It's just, been constantly suppressed, hasn't it?
Well, the women's movement and the movement for greater rights in Iran has been cyclical and has never died. The very first demonstration after the imposition of the Islamic Republic was actually a women's demonstration protesting the enforcement of hijab, and that was way back in 1979. And there have been demonstrations for different rights, but by different groups, whether they are students or whether they are women, of course, or young people that want to have better living conditions. These have come over and over and over again. There was the famous Green Movement in 2009, where there was a question of voting rights and representation. There's always been significant crackdown. And I do have to add that this is not just something that has occurred under the current regime. There has been a history for 100 years of crackdowns on Iranian protesters, and those protests keep coming back.
Yeah.
And so I do see that at the moment, although there's a certain amount of retrenchment, it's also winter, which is never really a good time in terms of weather. Iran has very harsh winters with snow and ice. So it is less common to have a great number of protests taking place at this time of year. But there are still women that are appearing in the streets without hijab. Even in Tehran, there are many less. It's considerably more dangerous. But one can tell the spirit is there. And certainly to have heard Narges Mohammadi's speech to the Nobel Committee, it was very stirring, showing that there was no spirit in Iran to let this go, that they have every intention of continuing.
Yeah. Well, she remains detained in a prison in Evin, doesn't she, Narges Mohammadi?
Yes.
I just wonder how much of a symbol she is, and whether those awards, she won the Nobel Peace Prize this year, whether those awards have a stirring effect on the Iranian people.
Well, I think they took great pride in it. They certainly knew about it. One of the whole drivers behind the more recent demonstrations of that around Mahsa Amini was the internet that enabled people to create a social digital protest movement. And the majority of people, millions of people in Iran, use VPNs to get around the internet restrictions. So they were aware of this award and took enormous pride in it. And of course, it is the second Nobel Peace Prize to be awarded to a woman in Iran over the last few decades. So Shireen Ebadi, who runs the organization that Narges Mohammadi is part of, Defenders of Human Rights Center, was awarded one as well. But very unfortunately, she had to leave Iran because the repression and the targeting of her was so great. So it's quite difficult to know how much the award actually affects the thinking and the actions of the government.
Well, look, thank you so much for speaking to us today. Hugely appreciated. Dr. Roxane Farmanfarmaian, who is a lecturer, teacher at Cambridge University. Thank you very much.